characteristics of this matrix structure is it break the unity of command. The unity of command in the sense one person should report only to another person. There should be only one superior for each and every subordinates. So here, since each and every person working in that organization has to report to the product line manager and the functional manager, here the unity of command, the concept of unity of command is broken. Okay, so that is the most obvious or the basic feature of the matrix structure. So employee in the matrix structure, they will be having two bosses. One is the functional department manager, other one is the product manager. So what's the strength of this matrix structure is, it is the ability to facilitate the coordination when the organization has a number of complex and interdependent activities. So when they are performing the complex and interdependent activity, it's really easy for them to coordinate the activity because they will be having the interaction with both the party and direct and frequent contact between different specialists. So marketing specialist can maybe having contact with every product line manager. So there will be the direct contact between the specialist, and the metric can let information permeates the organization and more quickly reach the people who need it. So they can share the information very quickly because everyone will be interacting with each other. So the metric reduces the bureaupathology. So bureaupathology in the sense the dual line of authority limit the people tendency to protect their territory at the expense of the organization goal. So here, only if the product departmentalization is there, they will be only focusing on their product line. They will not care about the whole organization. Their intention, their goal is to protect their product line and earn a profit of their product line. So since here dual authority is there, like dual line of authority is there, even though they want to protect their product line, they cannot actually do it at the expense of the whole organizational goal because they have to report to the functional manager as well. Okay, so and it also achieve the economies of scale and facilitate the allocation of specialists by both providing the best resources and ensuring they are efficiently used. Okay, so this is what the advantage of matrix structure and what if we ask whether the matrix structure is the best one, no, we can say there are some disadvantages too. Okay. So what are the disadvantages associated with matrix structure? It lies in the confusion because since one person needs to report to two different managers, one product manager and functional manager, there might be some confusions. And its tendency to foster the power struggle and stress to place the individual. So power struggles would be creating. So people will be confusing and they will be having some confusion like to whether to act according to the functional manager's order or act according to the product line manager's order. So for individual who desire the security and absence from ambiguity, this will because the ambiguity, confusions, those would be there in the matrix structure. So this is how a matrix structure would look like. So we can see if it is an education institution, there will be different products: undergraduate, masters, PhD, research, executive development, community service. Those there will be different products. At the same time, they will be performing different functions: accounting, finance, decision and information, the management, marketing. So there will be different functions as well as different product line. For example, if we take one person is working under the marketing department of PhD, then this person X will report to PhD, this product line manager, as well as the marketing functional manager as well. So here, this person X has two different bosses. So he has to report to both and they have to adhere to the orders of both. That is what uh, one of the main feature of this matrix structure, and sometimes it can create the confusions as well. Then moving on to the other alternative design options, rather than these basic three, we can have other alternative options. So in these days, organizations are designing themselves in different ways. So one of the ever increasing trend of the flatter structure, because organizations are now becoming more and more flatter, reducing their hierarchical levels. Many organizations have been developing new options with fewer layers of hierarchy and more emphasis on opening the boundary of the organization. So in this section, we will try to discuss about those sections in most contemporary organization. One is the virtual structure, and the other one is the team structure, and the third one is the circular structure. Virtual structure, team structure, and circular structure. Virtual structure in the sense of virtual organization means it is also called as the network organization or module organization. So we can say the virtual organization into in another way, another name, maybe network organization or module organization. Okay, so it is a small co-organization that outsources major business functions. So when it comes to this virtual organization, it's a small organization which outsources most of its business function. They just do core functions only. There are most of the functions like maybe accounting, finance, taxation, their research and development. So many functions or non-critical activities, they can outsource this to the other people or other organization and they can have it for a rent. So the major advantage of virtual organization, so here they don't need a big space to operate because they don't actually engage in every activity. So sometimes they don't need office space even. So sometimes without even a space, they can function. Maybe if they are functioning like online businesses, they don't need to have an open office space even. So the advantage is its flexibility, which allows the individual with an innovative idea and little money to successfully compete against the larger, more established organization. Because here they don't need space, they don't need a bigger area to operate in. So with little investment, little capital, they can compete with large organization. They do the functions, but they don't do themselves. They just actually outsource the function and get the service from someone else. So however, they will be like doing the same as large organization but in a different way. So without the much capital, without a large investment, they can compete with the larger organization. So this structure also saves a great deal of money by eliminating the permanent officers and hierarchical roles. So here they don't need to have the permanent officers and large hierarchical or many hierarchical levels. They don't need to have. So they can operate with minimum hierarchical levels and minimum space, but they can compete with the large organization. The drawback of these organization, virtual organization, is have become increasingly clear as popularity has grown because the virtual organization are state of perpetual flux and reorganization, which means the roles, goals, responsibilities are unclear to the people and setting stage for the political behavior. Since the people are not maybe meeting each other face to face, their roles, responsibilities are not exactly clear for them. So if it is not clear, there are chances for these misbehaviors and the use of organizational politics. Okay, so the cultural alignment and shared goals can be lost because of low degree of interaction among the members. Team members who are geographically dispersed and communicate infrequently find it difficult to share the information and knowledge, which can limit innovation and slow their responses. Okay, so here responses can be slowed down. Maybe since the team members are not meeting each other, they will be working remote and they are physically, geographically dispersed. So sometimes communication can be difficult. So these are the some disadvantages or drawbacks of this virtual organization. And this is how the virtual organization would look like. Executive group would be there. Sometimes factory would be in South Korea. Commissioned sales representative would be somewhere else. And independent research and development consulting firm might be in some other country as well. And advertising agency would be somewhere else. Everything is coordinated in a remote way, maybe using the internet technology of using these internet executive group will be controlling or coordinating all functions. This is how the virtual organization would be. And the other type of alternative design option is the team structure. So team structure in the sense is an organizational structure that replaces the department with empowered team and eliminates the horizontal boundaries and external barriers between the customers and the suppliers. So here almost same to the department, but what is here or what's the difference here is rather than having the department or naming it as department and allocating the specific roles and responsibilities, here they will be naming as FOR team, because even the organization has departmentalized based on the function. If the department want to execute something or make some decision, they have to get the permission of the top level of the organizations. But they don't have the authority to make the decision. They are not empowered to make the decision. But here the team structure, the same, it replaces the department with the empowered team. So teams will be empowered, they will be allocated resources, and they will be empowered to make the decisions even. So that is what the team structure means. Okay. So it eliminates the horizontal boundary. So if there are departments like marketing, HR, and all, sometimes the departmental people may not be even talking with each other. So there are horizontal boundaries would be there. So it eliminates these team structure eliminates the horizontal boundaries and external barriers between the customers and the suppliers. So again, external barriers are also eliminated here. There will be coordination or direct contact with the customers and the suppliers as well. So by removing the vertical boundaries, management flattens the hierarchy and minimizes the status and rank. So here also the hierarchy is flattened, minimum hierarchical levels are there. So cross-hierarchical teams, including like top executives, middle managers, supervisors, and operatives, would be there. So when it comes to a team, even in the marketing team, so there will be not only the people at the middle level management, there will be people from top level, low level. So people from different levels of the organization would be put into a team. So here the vertical boundaries are also eliminated, as well as the horizontal boundaries are also eliminated. So participative decision making practices would be there. So here the decision would not be taken by one person. There will be participative decision making. So the inputs will be the people for the decision making. We will get the input from different people and will talk to each other, and then only the decisions will be taken. And 360 degree of performance appraisal. So the performance appraisal will be like not looking into a one particular aspect and not just with from the supervisor side. So it will be the peers will be evaluating and others evaluate and self evaluation, and again supervisor evaluation would be there. So many perspective the performance evaluation would be taken. And the next alternative structure or the third structure is the cultural circular structure. So the circular structure means an organization structure in which the executives are at the center, spreading their vision outward in ring groups of groups by the function. Like there will be executive who would be like coordinating everyone. There will be they will be at the center of the organization, and what they will do is they will spread the vision outside the ring, grouped by the function. So there will be spreading their vision, goals, and everything to the managers or specialists who will be outside the ring. So it's like a circular. So and middle in the middle, the executive will be there. They will be spreading all the groups, all the goals, objectives, and everything to the outside people. So circular structure has initiative like intuitive appeal for creative entrepreneurs, and small innovative firms have claimed it. However, as in many of the current hybrid approaches, the employees are apt to be unclear about whom they report to and who is running the show. So here also there's a issue of like the unclear reporting, maybe biases. The employees doesn't know properly to whom they need to report to, who will be their direct supervisor. So that kind of confusion still lie at the circular structure as well. And the final one is a final topic that we are looking into the moving on to the lean organization. So how the organization are becoming leaner, more flexible, more flattering way is one of the way of doing or making the organization leaner is downsizing. So downsizing is a systematic effort to make an organization leaner by closing location, reducing the staff, or selling off the business unit that don't add value. So if you ask the question, what is the downsizing? Because you might have heard because of this economic crisis, the organizations are going for the layoffs, they are downsizing their businesses. So what does this downsizing means? So it's actually maybe if the organization is performing maybe 10 different location, if one location is always earning or running at a loss, then we can organization may decide to close that particular location. So that would be one option. Or else if the organization is employing 1,000 employees and they think that because of their loss, so maybe increasing cost, they just in 800 people are enough to do their activity. So they decide to lay off or terminate 200 people. So that is also one kind of downsizing. And then selling off the business unit. Sometimes if they have 20 business units, 20 product line, if one product line doesn't add value, then they can sell off those business unit and reduce their size. So this is what the downsizing means. So despite the advantage of being lean organization, the impact of downsizing on the organizational performance has been very controversial. So if we downsize, it makes the organization very leaner and flexible. However, there are some disadvantages like impact on the organizational performance. So reducing the size of the workforce. If we are terminating the employees, the workforce size would be reduced. So it has an immediate positive outcome in the form of low wage cost. If an organization earlier has 1,000 people and if they have reduced it to 800 by terminating 200 people, it will result in lower wage cost. Obviously, the immediate effect would be lower wage cost. Companies downsizing to improve the strategic focus often see the positive effect on the stock price after the announcement of this termination. But on the other hand, among the companies that only cut employees but don't restructure themselves, profit and stock prices usually decline. So, though they are downsizing through the termination or layoffs of the employees, if they just end up with layoffs only, they may not be successful in future. So after the layoff, they need to restructure their organization because they may lose some people performing a certain functions, but if they don't restructure, they may not able to function successfully. So they have to restructure themselves. And part of the problem is the effect of downsizing is on the employee attitude. So employee attitude is another issue because if 200 people are laid off, the remaining 800 people will have a fear in their mind. They will be having job insecurity. They don't have the security for their job. They may have a fear like at any time we also may be terminated by these organizations. So that is also another issue. So stress reaction can lead to increased sickness, absences, lower concentration on the job and the lower creativity. So because of this stress and all, because of this insecure feeling, they may be taking more and more leaves and may not be concentrating on the work and they will be losing the creativity. So those kind of issues might arise as a result of this downsizing. So companies can reduce the negative impact by preparing in advance. So what they can do to make this downsizing effectively, they can follow four different strategies. One is invest. Invest in the sense companies that downsize to focus on the competencies are more effective when they invest in high involvement work practices afterwards. Okay, so companies when they are downsizing, they can focus on the core competencies rather than performing everything. They can just focus on the core competencies or better the work which they perform very well are more effective when they invest in the high involvement work practice. And then communicate. When employees make effort to discuss downsizing with the employees early, the employees are less worried about the outcome and feel the company is taking their perspective into account. So even though they plan to lay off 200 employees, they can announce them it or communicate this matter earlier to the employees, so the employees will be prepared and they will feel like organization wants to consider about our perspective, but still they are running at a loss. They want to lay off us, and then participate. So whenever they are making decisions, they can get the voluntary participation of the employees, and employee will less worry if they participate in the process in some way, like voluntary early retirement. So if they want to lay off 200 people, they can announce, okay, if anyone wants to go for early requirement, you can go for, we can offer some additional benefits to themselves. So they can engage the people, participate voluntarily, and assist severe and extended healthcare benefits like job search assistance. So even though we are them laying off them, we can assist them in finding another job, or we can offer them some medical care benefits or something could be offered by the organization. So through that, we can reduce the negative effects of this downsizing. So these are the 4 different strategies the organization can follow to make the downsizing more successful. And final one is the structural design, or why do these two different structures, the mechanistic model and the organic model. Okay, so the mechanistic model, you can see in the picture, it will be like this. One person would be there, under that one person some people would be working there, and under each and every person there will be some people. So here, if you see the characteristic, there will be high specialization, rigid departmentalization, because here they may have grouped according to functions or product something. Departmentalization is there. Clear chain of command. So if this low person want to communicate something to the top level, they have to follow the chain of command. They have to first communicate it to the middle level, and then only they can communicate it to the top. A narrow span of control. So only the top level people only controlling 4. Low level people, again, middle level people, they will be controlling 5, 3, 4, 3. So narrow span of control is there. And centralization, whatever the decision, the final decision would be taken by the top level, and high formalization. So these are the characteristics of mechanistic model. Again, when it comes to the organic model, there will be like cross-functional teams. So here they have no clear hierarchy. So they are grouped into, but everyone is interacting with each other. So cross-functional teams, cross-hierarchical teams, information can be flow from each other, because these arrows or line indicates the information flows or their communication. So if they want to communicate something, everyone is communicated with each other. So it can be easy to share the information. Wide span of control. There is no span of control, actual span of control. If it is there also, if it is wide, and decentralization and low formalization would be there. So this is how the mechanistic and organic model would be. So mechanistic model is generally synonymous with bureaucracy. We can compare the mechanistic model to the bureaucracy, and it has a high standardized processes. An organic model, it's like boundaryless organization, more like the boundaryless organization. So it has flatter, fewer formal procedures for making decision and all. Okay. So the major causes or determinants of these organizational structures are, so what determines the structure of the organization? So there are 3 different things. One is organizational strategy. So first one is because the structure is meant to achieve the objective, an objective derived from the organization overall strategy. It's only logical that the structure should follow the strategy. The structure must change to accommodate. So why organizational strategy will decide the structure of the organization? Because the strategy, in the sense, it is designed to achieve the organizational goal. So if we want to achieve the organizational goal, the structure of the organization should be aligned with the organization strategy. So most current strategy framework focus on 3 strategic dimensions. One is innovation strategy, other one is cost minimization strategy, and the other one is imitation strategy. So innovation strategy to like achieve unique innovation, new things are introduced in that organization. So if the organization follows such a strategy, that is called innovation strategy. Another type of strategy is the cost minimization strategy. If the organization focus always on the cost control, tight cost controls are there, and always try to reduce the cost of the organization, that is cost minimization strategy. And the third one is imitation strategy, in the sense, in order to minimize the risk of introducing something new first to the market, they just follow the market leaders. Once some company introduces something, the other one just follow the strategy. Same strategy would be followed. Imitation. Okay. So these are the 3 different strategic dimensions the organization can follow, and which will decide the organization structure. So if an organization follows the innovation strategy, organic structure would be more suitable to them. And if they follow the cost minimization strategy, the mechanistic structure would be more suitable. And if they follow the imitation strategy, a mix of mechanistic and organic model would be more suitable to that particular organization. So this is how the strategy and the structural options are designed, aligned with each other. Other determinants, other one is organization structure. So organization size. So if an organization is really big in size, they cannot actually follow the simple structure, or like sometimes mechanistic structure may not be suitable. So they may need to follow some organic structure. And the other one is technology. What kind of technology the organization uses may decide the structure they uses. And the environment. An organization's environment include like outside institution or co-workers can also determine its performance. So it affects its performance. So because it's affect the performance of the organization, it can also decide what structure need to be followed. Okay. So other one is a homework to you. So what effect the organizational design can have on the employee behavior? You can refer to the material and come up with the notes for this. Okay, come up with the answers for this question. How the organizational design can have an impact on the employee behavior. So how it can impact the behavior of the employees. Other than that, anything to ask? Is it clear? Shall we move on to the other chapter? Is it clear or not? Anything to ask? A small chapter. It's another one is it's about organizational culture. Shall we move on to the other chapter? Anything to ask? You can ask. Is it clear? If it is clear, please raise your hands. Thank you for the response. MS 140. Okay, I think I have already uploaded the slides for this chapter. So now we will move on to the other chapter, which is the organizational culture. A small chapter, so you can easily understand this, which is about the organizational culture. So specific learning objective of this particular chapter, the organizational culture is define the organizational culture and describe its common characteristics. So we will try to learn what is this organizational culture means and what characterizes the culture and compare the functional and dysfunctional effect of this organizational culture on the people and the organization. So whether this organizational, how this organizational culture impacting the performance of the people, what are the functional aspects and what are the dysfunctional effects of this culture. Okay, and then identify the factors that create and sustain this organizational culture and show how this culture is transmitted to the employees. So how we can transmit this culture to the employees and demonstrate how an ethical culture can be created. Okay, so how the ethical culture can be created in an organization and describe a positive organizational culture. So identify the characteristics of the spiritual culture. So these are the learning outcome that we are aiming to achieve. So, what does an organizational culture means? It's a system which refers to the shared meaning held by the members that distinguishes the organization from the other organization. Okay, so organizational culture in the sense it's not something like visible to the eyes of the other people. So it's something shared meaning held by the members of the organization. So if an organization is there, each and every member of that particular organization will be sharing a certain kind of meaning. So they will be giving importance to certain thing, and that is shared among all the members of that particular organization. And based on that meanings or the things they are giving importance to, which will differentiate that particular organization from the other organization. For example, the culture of the John Keels will differentiate it from the culture of the John Keels will differentiate it from the Unilever. So it's not just because of these product, it's because of the culture. And even if we take the same industry sector, so culture of the commercial bank of Sri Lanka will differentiate itself from the People's Bank or Bank of Ceylon. Even they are offering the financial products and services. The culture is the main thing that differentiate or distinguishes the organization from the similar organization to other organization. So there are seven primary characteristics that seem to capture the essence of the organizational culture. So seven characteristics or seven primary characteristics are there that differentiate the organizational culture from the other. So one is innovation and risk taking. Okay, so the first characteristics is innovation and risk taking. So this will decide or to what extent the organization is innovating and what extent they are ready to take the risk. So the degree to which the employees are encouraged to be innovative and take risk will decide or will set up the culture for that particular organization. And the other one is attention to detail. That means the degree to which the employees are expected to exhibit the precision, analysis, and attention to detail. Sometimes the organization may not look into the detailed things. They will be doing everything in a very general way and publishing, and they will be displaying everything in a very general manner. But on the other hand, some organization they will be doing everything in a very detailed manner and giving importance to attention to every minute thing. So, to what extent they are giving importance to this detail or not? That is the attention to detail. And the third one is the outcome orientation. So, the degree to which management focus on the results or the outcome rather than the technique or processes used to achieve them. So, whether the management is focusing on the end results or the processes which lead to the end results. So, whether they like if you take yourself, whether you are focusing on the end results or whether you are focusing on how well you are studying or preparing for the examination, whether you focus on the process or the end results. That is the outcome orientation. And the next one is the people orientation. Whether how much the organization is taking into consideration of the people within the organization, whether they are caring about their people who work for them or whether they don't care about the people. And then team orientation. So the degree to which the activities are organized around the team, whether the activities are performed as individuals or whether the activities are performed in a team manner. So that is the team orientation. And the next one is the aggressiveness. That is the degree to which the people are aggressive and competitive rather than easygoing. So whether the people are really aggressive and competing, always competing with each other, or whether they are very friendly and easygoing. And the next one is the stability. Whether the organization activities are stable, emphasize on maintaining the stability, or whether they are very flexible, emphasize on changes. Okay. So these are the 7 elements which characterizes the culture of an organization. So the culture can be strong or weak in an organization. So it's possible to differentiate between the strong and weak culture. So if most of the employees responding to the management survey have same opinion about the mission, goals, values, and of an organization, then the culture is strong. Otherwise, the culture is weak. Okay. So if we ask some question, if they ask the same question from each and every employees in an organization, and if every one of them responded in the similar way, then the culture of the organization is really strong. And if they are answering in very different way, then the culture of the organization is really weak. Okay. So in a strong culture, the organization's core values are both intensely held and widely shared. So they will be having intense values and that will be widely shared among the employees. The more the members who accept the core values, the greater their commitment. So the more and more the employees are accepting the values, the greater their commitment would be. So the behavior is high degree of sharedness and intensity create a climate of high behavioral control. So here it will culture has a great influence on the behavior. If it is very strong, widely shared, and intensely held, the people will know about the culture and they will be committing themselves for the organization. And that culture will have greater impact on the behavior of the employees. And a strong culture should reduce the employee turnover because it demonstrates high agreement about what the organization represents. So here, employee turnover is reduced because it demonstrates the employee agreement about uh, what they work for. Okay, so here the turnover of the employee would be reduced, and if it is strong, weak culture, the opposite way, the employee will be like they don't want to work for the organization and it will not be intensely held or widely shared. Each and every employee in the organization may have the different opinions. Okay. So the culture versus the formalization. If you ask the question whether this culture is same as the formalization, we have seen that high formalization create the predictability, orderliness, and the consistency. And a strong culture achieves the same end without the need for the written documentation. So formalization means everything is really defined and everything is done in a predetermined way and according to the orders, procedures, rules, regulations would be there. and everything is written down in a document. But in a strong culture, the same thing is done as a formalization, but there will not be a strong documentation. A written documentation would not be there. Without the written documentation, people will be following the procedures, following the certain way of doing things. Therefore, we should view the formalization as culture as two different roads to the same destination. So here, both are doing same thing, but the way they do would be different. So both are reaching the same destination, but in a different routes. So the strong the organization culture, the less management need to be considered about the formal rules and regulation to guide the employee behavior. So if the organization culture is really strong, the management they don't need to develop the rules and regulation to guide the employee behavior, because the employee themselves will follow the rules and regulation because it's shared among them, it's deeply ingrained in their minds. So they don't need to have the document to refer to behave in a certain way. Okay. So what do these culture do, or culture? What are the functions that a culture in an organization performs? The first one, culture has a boundary defining role. So it will define what the organization will do and what the organization should not do. So it creates the distinction between one organization and the other. And second one, it convey a sense of identity for the organization members. So the culture uh, it will give an identity. So the employees who work for the commercial bank will have an identity because of the culture of the commercial bank. So it gives an identity to the employees. And third one, culture facilitate the commitment to something larger than the individual self-interest. So culture, it will create the employee commitment to the organization. It is more than self-interest of the employees. Okay. The fourth one, it enhances the stability of the social system. Culture is a social glue that helps hold the organization together by providing the standards for what employees should say and do. Okay, so it is the stability of the social system. So here the culture will enhance, or it will say, okay, this is what acceptable and this is what not acceptable. So you can like do this or practice this in an organization, and this should not be done in the organizational setting. So it enhances the stability of the social system. So finally, it's a sense making and control mechanism that guide and shape the employee attitude and the behavior. So here culture guide and shape the employee attitude and the behavior. So these are the five different functions which is performed by the organizational culture. Okay. The next is uh, what creates the culture, or the culture creates a climate. Okay, so not only doing these five different functions which the culture does, another thing done by the culture is the creation of the organizational climate, so which refers to the shared perception the organizational members have about their organization and working environment. So here what the employees are thinking about their organization and their working environment, whether the commercial bank employees are feeling like the working environment is really cool and it's really improving or like motivating us to work towards, it's really facilitating our needs, it's supporting our work performance, it's really the working environment is really good. So if they feel so, or else whether the BOC employees are feeling like the working environment is not really good. It's the ventilation is not there. It's not supporting our work. The furnitures are not properly designed. So what the perception the employees are having about the organization and the working environment. So this aspect of the culture is like team spirit at the organizational level. So when everyone has the same general feeling about what's important or how well things are working, the effect of this attitude will be more than the sum of the individual parts. So whenever this organizational culture climate is same for each and every employee, so it will be having a greater impact on the performance of the employees. Okay, and whether the culture is seen as a liability or is it seen as a motivating factor. So culture can enhance the organizational commitment and increases the consistency of the employee behavior, which clearly benefits the organization. So here it creates the organizational commitment and consistency among the employee behavior. So culture is valuable to the employee too, because it spells out how things are done and what's important to them. So culture specifies how the things are done and what's important for their employees. But we should not ignore the potentially dysfunctional aspect of the culture, because some cultures they have even negative impact as well. One is institutionalization. So when an organization undergoes the institutionalization, like that means sharing something within the organization among all the members of the organization is called as institutionalization. So when they go for institutionalization, that is valued for itself and not for the goods and services of its products, it takes on a life of its own apart from its founders or the members. Okay. So the second one, barriers to change. Sometimes the culture can act as a barrier for change because of the culture of the organization. Since they don't want to take risks, they may not able to change. So that may act as a barrier for the change in an organization. So here the culture act as a liability for the organization. And the other one is barriers for the diversity. And because of the culture of the organization, sometimes the organization may not able to hire the employees from that different background. So if the culture of the organization is focusing only on the masculinism, that means only employing the male employees, then whenever comes to the recruitment or hiring, they will be ignoring the female employees, even though they are the high performers. So it can act as a barrier to the diversity. And again, the barriers to the acquisitions, like the mergers, acquisition and mergers. So historically, when management looked at acquisition or mergers decision, the key factor were the financial advantage and the product synergy. So sometimes the culture can act as a barrier for these mergers and acquisition. Okay, so how we can create and sustain the culture in an organization? What are the ways in which the culture can be created and it can be sustained in the organization? So how a culture begin in an organization? So if we say, okay, it's a shared meaning, it's shared among the members of the organization. So how it begins? So an organization, current custom, tradition, and general way of doing things are largely due to what it has done before and how successful it was doing it. So it's because of how it has done, performed the activities in history and how successful it was doing. So this led us to ultimate source of organization culture. So the history will be the source of the organizational culture. So in the history, the first person who will be doing something is the founders. So founders are the major source of the organizational culture. So if we ask who are the source of this culture, is the founder. So free of previous customs, ideologies, the founders have a vision of what the organization should be, and the firm's small size make it easy to impose the vision on all members' mind. Okay, so founders are the one who will be having the vision of what the organization should be and how they have to perform their activities. So culture creation occur in three ways. First, the founder hire and keep only employees who think and feel in the same way they do. So if they are, the founders are really like they want to take the risk and they want to always initiate new things and innovate new things, introduce new things to the market. How they can create that innovative culture in the organization is they can hire the people who have the same thinking pattern as themselves. So that is one way of doing or creating the culture. Second one, they indoctrinate and socialize these employees to their way of thinking and feeling. So they can socialize these employees. Even though the employees are not thinking in the same way, they can make them think in that particular way through the socialization. And finally, the founder's own behavior encourages the employee to identify them and internalize their beliefs and values and the assumptions. So other thing is the founders they can act as the inspiration, they can act as the role models so that the other employees will follow the founders and they will also have the same values, beliefs and the assumption. So these are the three different ways in which the culture can be created. So the ultimate source is the founder. So founder they can hire and keep the same employees, or else they can socialize the same employee people. And seven, the next one is they can encourage the people uh, uh, through their own behavior. These are the three different ways in which the culture can be created. So once it is created, how we can keep that culture alive? That means how we can sustain the culture. So three forces play a particularly important part in sustaining the culture. So there are three different factors which play or which plays an important part in sustaining the culture. One is selection practices, and the other one is actions of the top management, and third one is the socialization method. So selection in the sense, the final decision regarding the selection is significantly influenced by the decision maker's judgment of how well the candidate fit into the organization. Because though there are candidates who have the eligibility, like they have the qualifications, experience, and all, the final decision to decide, to select whom or which candidate would be based on the judgment of the evaluator or the judgment of the decision maker, because he will decide whether this particular person will suit to or will be fitting into the organizational culture. So if they select the people who has the same mindset or same thinking pattern, they can keep the culture alive. And the second method or second factor is top management. The actions of the top management also have major impact on the organizational culture, because they are the one being as role model, or they are the one initiating every behavior in the organization. So they have to be role model. They have to inspire the other people to maintain that particular culture. And the third one is the socialization. So no matter how good a job the organization does in recruiting and selection, new employee, they need to be socialized in the prevailing culture. So we have to help the people to adapt themselves to the existing culture of the organization. So the socialization is the process with three stages, because pre-arrival, encounter, and the metamorphosis. Okay. So in the pre-arrival stage, the employee will be before they come into the organization, they as an individual will be having certain values and morals with themselves. And after they come into the organization, they will face the encounter stage, where they will face the organization culture, and they may sometimes feel some contradiction between the individual values and the organizational values. So in the metamorphosis stage, the organization have to make their workers help to adapt to the organizational culture. So the outcome could be productivity, commitment, or if they are not fitting with the culture, the turnover would be the outcome. Okay. So as I already said, the pre-arrival recognizes that individual arrives with a set of values and attitude and expectation about both work and the organization. In the encounter stage, they will face or confront the expectation of the organization. And finally, to work out any problem discovered in the encounter stage, the new member changes or goes through the metamorphosis stage. They have to adapt themselves to the organization. So, three-party socialization process is complete when new employee have internalized and adapted to the norms of the organization. When they have adapted themselves to the culture of the organization, these socialization process will come to an end. Okay. So okay, so before moving into the other parts, how the employee can learn the culture, and how we can create the culture, and spirituality and the positive culture, uh, we will have a break about maybe 5 minutes, and we'll continue this chapter, and we'll start the final chapter as well. Okay. Anything to ask in this organizational culture? Anything to ask? Any clarification up to now? Okay. If you don't have any doubts, please have a break about 5 minutes and come back at 6:10. Okay. Okay, so now we will start. For how the employees in an organizations are learning this culture. So, if the founder is the one who would be the source of the culture, so how it can the employees learn the culture through the story. So, there are four different ways by which the employees in an organization can learn the culture about the organization. So, one is the stories through the stories about the organization, like anchoring the maybe past and the current practices, so how they have done, how they have survived in the difficult situation. So what's the history of the organization? So the organization may have some stories, and by learning those stories and listening to those stories, they will learn about the culture. And the next one is the rituals. Ritual are the repetitive sequence of activities that express and reinforce the key values of the organization. So they will be having some rituals and some activities. Those are repeated over time in the organization. So by engaging in that repetitive actions, or by looking into observing or maybe learning about those repetitive actions, the organization can learn, the employees will learn about the structure of or the culture of the organization. The next one is the material symbol. So the material symbol are something like they convey the culture. Like when you take the like Sampath band, so they will be having a symbol, or maybe like something like is there in every branches of the organization. You might have noticed like it's I don't know the name of that exactly. So their symbol, like their logo, they are having it in a physical format in every branch. So those kind of symbols will convey the culture to the employees. And then language. So some organizational units within themselves, they may use certain jargon, certain language, and that language can also convey the culture to the employees. Okay, so through these four different ways, by stories, rituals, material symbols, maybe dress codes even can also seen as the material symbols, and language, the organization can or the employees can learn about the culture of the organization. Okay, so the other one is moving on to the creating the ethical organizational culture. So culture, how we can create the ethical culture. Ethical culture in the sense which supports like what needs to be done, what need not to be done. So what is acceptable and what are the things which are not acceptable. So how we can create these ethical standards or ethical culture in an organization. So what the managers can do to create this ethical culture, they can allow, they can adhere to the following principles. One is be a visible role model. So they can be a visible role model. So employees will look at the actions of the top management as a benchmark for appropriate behavior. So they send a positive message. So what they can do is they can be a role model, because the lower level employee, they are going to see the top management or the top executives and what they are doing, and they will think, okay, this is the acceptable behavior. So for example, if you are working for an organization, if your manager or the head comes to the office at maybe 9 o'clock, if the time of the work starts at 8:30, you would think that okay, coming 9 is okay, acceptable. So the head should not be like that. So if the work starts at 8:30, you have to come at 8:30 on time. So then only the followers or the low level people will follow you. So you have to be a role model. Second one, you can communicate the ethical expectations. So one thing is you can be role model through the behavior you can communicate, or else you can communicate, okay, this is what expected. We are expecting you to be punctual. Everyone need to come to the work on time. So these are our expectations. So you can communicate your expectation. The organization can communicate the expectation to the employees, and then provide ethical training. They can give some training to the employees to be ethical, to behave in an ethical way in the organization. And then visible rewards ethical acts and punish unethical ones. So if the employees are behaving in ethical way, we can reward them, and if they are like not behaving in an ethical way, and if they are violating the ethics, we can punish those employees. So two different way you can follow. And finally, we can provide the protective mechanism, so formal mechanism, so the employees can discuss about this ethical dilemma, or they can have complaints about these unethical behavior of the other employees. So those kind of mechanisms can be created in the organization, and through these the organization managers can develop an ethical culture in their organization. And the final one is spiritual organization, spirituality and the organizational culture. So, workplace spirituality recognizes that people have an inner feeling, inner life that nourishes and is nourished by meaningful work in the context of community. So, here the spirituality in the sense they have some feeling, inner feeling within themselves, and that is nourished by meaningful work in the context of the community. That is what the workplace spirituality. So the reasons for growing interest of this spirituality is the spirituality can counterbalance the pressures and stress of the turbulent phase of life. So since the environment is highly volatile and the organizations are really competitive, so it puts some pressure on the minds of the people, and the people are really stressed about these things. So if they are really spiritual, this can counterbalance, or this can the spirituality can help them to balance their work life and stress and all. And formalized religion hasn't worked for many people. So religion actually the people are not actually believing in religion sometimes, some people, but they believe in spirituality and the positive aspects of it. And job demand have made the workplace dominant in many people's lives. So job demand is dominant for many people's life. They can they cannot come out of this job demand. They have to stick with that, and people want to integrate their personal value with the professional value. So if there is a contradiction between this personal life and the professional life, they feel stressed and they will feel frustration and all. So they want to integrate their professional life and the personal life. And increasing number of people are finding that pursuit of more material acquisitions leave them unfulfilled. Okay. So the final one is characteristics of these spiritual organizations. So what are the characteristics of this spiritual organization? There are four different characteristics. One is benevolence, in the sense the spiritual organizations are the one which shows the kindness towards the other people, kindness towards the employees. They care about the other people. So that is one of the characteristics. Second one, strong sense of purpose. So spiritual organization, they have developed a strong sense of purpose, what they need to achieve, what is their goal. So they have developed it very strongly and they are working toward that. And next one, trust and respect. So spiritual organization, they give mutual trust. So the employees in a spiritual organization trust each other, and other people also trusting themselves. So they are a mutual trust among the employees. And finally, open-mindedness. Okay, so spiritual organization, they are very flexible in thinking, and they are very transparent. They share everything with each other in a very transparent manner. Okay, so these are the four different characteristics of the spiritual organization. So this is all about the organizational culture, a small chapter. Anything to ask? Any clarification on this chapter? Shall we move on to the next chapter? Okay, if it is clear, we will move on to the next chapter, which is organizational change and stress management. That is also a small chapter. Uh, we are trying to learn about these organizational change and how the people are experiencing the stress at work, occupational stress, and how it can be overcome. What are the strategies they can follow? Okay, so there's organizational change and stress management. So the specific objectives are identify the forces that act as the stimulants to change, and contrast the planned change and unplanned change. Describe the sources of resistance to change. Compare four main approaches for the organizational change. Demonstrate two different ways of creating a culture for change. Stress and identify the potential sources and identify the consequences of stress, and contrast the individual and the organizational approaches to managing the stress. So these are the specific learning outcomes, a small chapter. Okay. So the forces of change. So when you think why the organizations are changing, for example, a change in the sense an organization earlier done they are doing everything manually, everything they are documenting in their paper, and which is done manually by their employees. Now they are having a change in their organization. They are automating their function with the integration of the technology. So that is an example of the change the organization can go for. So this is how the organization can engage in many different change activities. So automation, or maybe mergers, acquisitions, downsizing. So there are many different examples for this change program. So what are the forces which stimulates this change? What are the forces which uh, induces or which motivate the organization to implement a change program? So first one is the nature of the workforce. So since the nature of the workforce is going for a change, like earlier the people are like the aging population is really low in the global, but now the people live long and the aging population is there, and the people are like immigrating from one country to another. So these changes in the workforce can stimulate the organization to go for a change. And then technology, since the technology is changing very fastly, they have to adapt to the technological change. Otherwise, they cannot survive in the market. So if they want to survive in the market, they have to go for a change. And the economic shocks, like the economic crisis that Sri Lanka is going through, the organization has to do something to cope up these crises, to survive in this crisis situation. So that is one of the things. And the competition. So when the new competitors or when arises, or when the organization faces the high level of competition from existing competitors, when others introduce something new, they also have to do something counteract to this competition. Then only they can survive. And the social trends, like increased environmental awareness, increased healthcare concerns. So those are the social trends. So according to the social trends, the organization need to adapt themselves. And world politics, like how the war between Russia and Ukraine is going on. So those might have some influence or impact on these organizational conditions, and to adapt to these conditions, the organization need to go for a change. Okay, so these are the forces for the changes. So what is a change? Change is making thing different, like changing in this, like making the thing different from the status quo, moving to a new status. Okay, so change can be planned change or unplanned change. Planned change in the sense we are intentionally making the things different. We are intentionally implementing a change. That is planned change. Some changes are unplanned, without our intention, without our plan. We have to change ourselves. Okay, so plan change is a change activity that are intentional and goal oriented. So if we are doing something intentionally, there will be a goal we try to achieve. Okay, so what are the goals of the plan change? First, seek to improve the ability of the organization. Whatever we do, we try to improve the ability. And second, seek to change the employee behavior. So these might be the two different goals a change plan change program may have. So who is an organization responsible for managing this change activity? So we call them as the change agents. So the people who manage the change activity in an organization, we can call them as the change agent. So change agent are the person who act as the catalyst and assume the responsibility for managing change activity. So the people in an organization who initiate the change, and the people who have the complete responsibility for this change activity, we can call them as the change agent. So they see future for the organization in a different way, which others have not identified, and they are able to motivate and implement this vision. So change agent can be managers or non-managers. So they can be current or new employees. So we don't need to have the change agent from the outside. So they can be from inside as well. So they can be the managers of the organization, or they can be the employees, or else we can hire someone from outside of the organization to initiate this change program. So resistance, if these are the forces to this change, what are the resistant to change? Resistant to change in the sense, sometimes if we plan for a change, if we try to change something in the organization like automation, sometimes the people in the organization may not actually want to have that change. They don't want to automate the processes. Maybe because the fear, like they don't know how to use the new technology. Sometimes if they automate the functions of the organization, sometimes they may have fear, they may lose their job. So because of those kind of concern, the people in an organization may resist the change, or they don't want the change to be implemented. So that's like that. There are many different factors which can resist this change. So resistance can come from two different sources. One is individual sources, and the other one is organizational sources. So individual sources in the sense, first is habit. So since they are habituated, they have already familiarized with the thing, they don't want to change the thing. So that is the one individual source. Other one is security. They like because of the new thing, they feel like they are not familiar. It's not familiar to themselves, so they need some kind of security, the feeling of security. So if the change is implemented, they feel like they are insecure, so they don't want to have the change. And the other economic factor, sometimes the changes in the job tasks, like established work routine, they can arouse the economic fears if the people are concerned that they won't able to perform the new task to their previous standards. Some because of the new tasks are changed, the way the organization changes the task, then they may have a fear in the mind. They may not be able to perform the task properly. So we don't want this change to be introduced. And the other fear of unknown. So again, since the people are not aware of this new practices, they don't know the things. They don't want to introduce the new thing. And selective information processing. So individuals are guilty of selectively processing information in order to keep their perception intact. Okay, so they just hear what they want to hear, and they don't actually see the positive side of this change program. So because of these tendency, they will sometimes resist the change. These are the individual resistance. And when it comes to the organizational resistance, they can be structural inertia. That means organizations, they have already built-in mechanisms, and they have regulations and rules, regulations establish everything in the organization. And changing something is very difficult for the organizations because of this already established way of doing things. And the next one, limited focus on the change. So they may like organization is something which is consists of many subsystems, like many departments, many people and all, and they can be changed without affecting the other people. So limited changes in the subsystems tend to nullified by the large system. So if they are automating something, it will be affecting each and every element in the organization. And if they don't consider all those elements, they may not be successful in their change. And group inertia, like same as individual resistance, the individual want to change their behavior. Groups know maybe sometimes act as a constraint. And the next one is the threat to expertise. So sometimes the organization may be like performing very well in certain things, but if they change the organization, they may have a fear like they may lose their expertise in doing that particular thing. And threat to establish power relationship. So because of the change, some people, they may have to lose the power, authority, and information and all. So because of this loss of power or established relationship, they may don't want to go for a change program. These are the organizational resistance. Okay. So how this resistance can be overcome, that how we can overcome this resistance, what are the strategies we can follow, whether it is individual or organizational resistance. First one, education and communication. So why people are not resisting is one of the reason is that they don't actually know about the change. What are the benefits or the positive outcomes of this change? So we have to communicate it. We have to educate the people. Okay, this is the change that we are trying to implement, and if we implement this change, you will be having these kind of benefits. So we have to communicate. And participation. And whenever we are making the decisions, whenever we are implementing the change program, we can get the participation from the employee side. So if they are participating in something, they will agree that too. Okay, they will not be resisting that thing. So we can get the participation. And building support and commitment. When employee have some fear and anxiety about this unknown thing or like loss of expertise, we can give them the training. We can give some short leaves and facilitate some adjustment to support themselves to adapt to the changes. And develop the positive relationship. So when we are developing positive relationship, the people are more willing to accept change if they trust the managers implementing them. So if they trust the people who implement the change, then they will think, okay, the change is for the benefit of ourselves. That's why the organization is implementing this change. So we have to first develop positive relationship and then implementing the change fairly. So whatever you are doing, you have to implement. Whatever the change the organization is implementing, they have to implement it very fairly. They do not like favor one group of people and let the other group of people to have the negative impact of this change. And then manipulation and cooptation. So manipulation refers to the convert influence attempts like twisting some information, so twisting something to make it more attractive to the people, like holding certain kind of information and only sharing the information which makes the change or which shows the change as a positive thing. So that kind of small manipulation can be made to make the people accept the change. And selecting the people, so we can select the people who accept the change, who have a positive attitude towards the change, so that they will support the change program to be implemented. And finally, we can use the quotient. Like if the people are not accepting or like not agreeing to the change, what after doing all these kind of things, we can use the threat means. We can threat the people. You can threat the people. Use the quotient. Like we can say, if you are not accepting these changes, we will terminate you. We will lay off you from the organization. So those kind of quotients can be used to overcome this resistance to change. Okay, is that clear? Anything to ask in this change? Shall we move to the change approaches, for different approaches to change? Is it clear? If it is clear, please raise your hands. Okay, thank you for the response. Others, if you have any doubts, yeah, thank you for raising. If you have any doubts, you can unmute your mic anytime and ask the question. Okay. So now we will see what are the four different approaches available for this change. Okay. So organizational change. So there are several approaches, and we are just focusing on four different approaches. So first one, the basic model, the Levin's classic three-step model of the change process. And second one is the Kotter's eight-step plan. Third one is the action research plan. Next one is the organizational development. Okay. So the Levin three-step models, in the sense, Levin's, the person, Kurt Levin, has introduced a model. He says that the change processes through three different stages. Okay. So successful change in an organization should follow three stages or three steps. First is unfreezing the status quo. Second one is movement. Third one is refreezing the status quo. Okay. So what does this unfreezing mean? Changing to overcome the pressures of both individual resistance and group conformity. So first you have to unfreeze the status quo. You have to make the people, okay, the change, make the people aware of or accept the change is necessary to make or improve our current status quo. So we have to overcome the pressures from individual resistance and the organizational resistance. And second one, we can implement the change program. Okay, so a change program process transform the organization from the status quo to the desired state. Okay, so which transform the organization from the status quo to the desired state, that is the movement. Next one is the refreezing, stabilizing a change intervention by balancing driving and reframing forces. Okay, so after the change is implemented, sometimes there is a change, there is a chance where the organization can come back to the previous status. So rather than we have to prevent the organization from coming back to the earlier stage. So in order to do that, in order to prevent the organization coming back to the earlier stage, we have to refreeze it. We have to stabilize the change intervention in the organization. So that is what called as the refreezing. Okay. So these are the three different steps according to the Levin's model the change has to go through. So Levin states that there will be a status quo. The people will be in a status or in a position where they will be familiarized with everything, every actions, every step, so the functions of the organization. So we have to first make them uncomfortable about the situation. We have to make them feel about uncomfortable. So status quo is an equilibrium state. to move from the equilibrium to overcome the pressures of the both individual and resistance conformity. Unfreezing must happen in any of one of the three ways. So unfreezing, how we can unfreeze the status quo is, one is driving forces which direct the behavior away from the status quo can be increased. So how we can do this unfreezing is, we can increase the driving forces. Second one, the restraining forces which hinder the movement away from the equilibrium can be decreased. Okay, so we can decrease the restraining forces. Alternatively, we can combine the first two approaches. So while increasing the driving forces, and we have to decrease the restraining forces. So in order to unfreeze, we can follow three different ways. One is we can increase these driving forces. We can increase these driving forces. We can increase it, or else we can refrain, or we can decrease these restraining forces. We can lower it, decrease it, or else we can combine both together in order to unfreeze the situation. Okay, so after unfreezing, we can actually implement a change, and then we have to refreeze it, because otherwise there's a chance the organization come back to the earlier situation. So research on organizational change has shown that to be effective, the actual change has to happen very quickly. We should not take a long period of time to actually implement the change. It has to be done very quickly. So organizations that build up to change do less well than those get to and through the movement stage quickly. So once the change has been implemented to be successful, the new situation must be refrozen so it can be sustained over time. As I said, once it is implemented, we have to refrain it or restrain it. Okay. So without this last step, the change will likely to be short-lived. The employee will attempt to revert to the previous equilibrium. So there's a chance they will come back to the previous equilibrium. So the objective of refreezing is to stabilize the new situation by balancing the driving and refraining forces. Okay, so this is the Levin's first change approach, that is Levin's 3-step model. Second change approach is Kotter's 8-step model. Okay, so Kotter's 8-step plan for the change. So John Kotter of the Harvard Business School built on Levin's 3-step model to create a more detailed approach for implementing change. So here the same thing, but he has specified the change can happen through 8 steps rather than 3 steps. It can happen through 8 different steps. So Kotter began by listening common mistake the managers make when trying to initiate the change. So he tried to begin his steps by identifying the mistake the managers make when they are trying to initiate some changes. So they may fail to create the sense of urgency about the need for change. So before even starting the change or even communicating the change, we have to create a sense of urgency. Like the current situation is not satisfactory, we have to change our situation. So that kind of urgency need to be created. And then we have to remove the obstacles that could impede the vision achievement and provide the short-term achievable goals. And another change is into the organizational culture. Okay. So what are the 8 steps suggested by John Kotter is, the first one, establish a sense of urgency. That is the first step. Second one, form a coalition with enough power to lead the change. So coalition in the sense we have to form group of people to implement the change, and those group of people should have the power to implement the change. So we have to form the coalition. Next, create new vision to direct the change and strategies for achieving the vision. So we have to create new vision. Okay, this is what the new status of the organization would be, and how this new vision can be achieved. For that, we have to develop the strategy. And fourth step, we have to communicate the established vision and the strategy to the organizational members, to other members of the organization, and then empower others to act on the vision by removing the barriers to change and encouraging the risk taking and creative problem solving. So how we can make the other people to act on these changes, we can empower the people by removing the barriers to change. If there are any resistance, we can remove those resistance, and we have to encourage the people to engage in the change. And we have to plan for, create, and reward the short-term wins and move the organization toward the new vision. So we have to plan for the change, and we have to implement the short-term plans. And if they have, if we have achieved the short-term wins, we can reward the people. and then consolidate the improvements, reassess the change, and make any necessary actions or adjustment to the change program, and finally reinforce the change by demonstrating the relationship between the new behavior and the success. So finally, according to the Levin step, how the refreezing is done, here reinforce the change has to be done. So the same thing is elaborated according to 8 different steps. So moving on to the another change approach, which is the action research. So action research is a change process based on the systematic collection of data and selection of change based action based on what the analyzed data indicates. So here it is done like a research. Even before the change is implemented, even before the change is initiated, we have to collect some systematic, we have to collect data in a systematic way, and we have to engage in the action based on the evidences of the collected data. So its value in providing the scientific methodology. So here in the action research, a scientific methodology is followed. So for managing the change. So action research consists of 5 stages. So first one, diagnosis. The change agent of an outside consultant in the action research begin by gathering the information about the problem, concern the need for change from the members. So first thing, they have to identify a problem. So in order to solve the problem, we have to go for a change. So what's the need for change? So the need for change or the need for the problem has to be identified. That is the first stage. Second one is the analysis. So the change agent synthesize the information into primary concern, the problem areas, and the possible action. So then we have to analyze the information. We have to collect the data and analyze the information. That is the analysis. Third one, action research require the people who will participate in any change program, and we have to get the feedback from those people. So require sharing the employees what has been found from the first and second stage, and we have to get the feedback from the employees. That is the third step. And fourth step is action. So we have to actually implement the change. First, we have to analyze or diagnose the problem. Then we have to analyze the problem, and we have to get the feedback from the people. And then we have to actually implement the change. We have to engage in the action. Okay. Finally, we have to evaluate whether the change program is implemented as planned. If not, we can take the corrective action. So this is how the action plan method suggests the change program to be implemented. Okay, so the action program, action research have two benefits out of the other approaches. The first one, it's problem based because it initially identify the problem, then only it suggests some change program to solve the problem. And second one, action research engages the employee thoroughly in the process because it gets the feedback from the people, it collects the data from the people. In order for the problem to be identified, also they have some discussion with the people. So throughout the change program, the employees are involved in. So if they are involved in, they will be having less resistance to the change program. So these are the benefits of this action program out of the other changes. Okay. So these are the approaches for managing changes. Moving on to the creating a culture for change, how the culture for change can be created in an organization. So the change refers to making things different. So innovation is a more specified kind of change. So change is making things different, changing something. So innovation is introducing some new things. It's a kind of change. So a new idea applied to initiating or improving the product, process, or services, whatever it is. So all innovation imply a change program. Okay. So what are the sources of innovation? So innovation, it can range from a small incremental changes in the program to large change program or large innovation. So what are the sources of innovation? So organic structure, they positively influence the innovation because they are lower in vertical differentiation, formalization and centralization. They can foster the innovation. And long tenure in the management is also associated with the innovation. So when the people are working in the managerial position for a long period of time, maybe 20 years, 25 years, they will come up with some innovative idea or innovative strategies to manage the organization. And then innovation is nurtured when there are slack resources. So when we are experiencing some issues or some problems, or when we are lacking some resources, we will try to find out some new ways of using those resources effectively. So through these things or through these sources, the innovation can bring out and creating a learning organization. So how this innovation can lead to this learning organization, or how this learning organization can improve or motivate this innovation in the organization is another way organization can proactively engage in changes, creating the learning organization. So what are the characteristics of learning organization is there is a shared vision that everyone agrees on. So there will be a vision in the organization and everyone will be agree on that vision. And people discard the old ways of thinking and they will be thinking in a very different numerous perspective. And members think of organizational processes, activities, functions, and interaction. So everyone will be thinking about the organization processes. And people openly communicate with each other. There will be transparent communication. No one will be hiding any information from each other. Everyone will be openly sharing the information. And people sublimate their personal self-interest for the shared vision of the organization. The main interest or main goal is to achieve the organizational vision. They will not be thinking about their personal interest. Okay. So this is about the change. Shall we move on to the work stress? Three more slides are pending. Any doubts on this change management? Shall we move on to the stress management? The small part is remaining. Anything to ask in this change? Any clarification? Okay, if it is clear, we will move to the final part of the chapter, work stress. Okay, so work stress is very easy to understand that everyone in the organization in today's world, whatever the work they are feeling, they will be feeling a certain level of stress about their work. So stress, if we want to define it, it's a dynamic condition in which the individual is confronted with an opportunity, demand, or resource related what the individual desires and for which outcome is perceived to be both uncertain and important. Okay? So here it's a dynamic condition. So individuals are confronted. It may be because of the demand or opportunity or resource related something, and it will have some outcomes that is uncertain and very important to the people. So although the stress is typically discussed as a negative thing, it's not necessarily bad in and of itself, and it has positive value as well. So whenever we think about the stress, we always think it as a negative thing, but it's not actually true. To a certain level or to a certain extent, stress can bring about a positive outcome, and if it exceeds that level, it can bring about the negative outcome. So recently, the researchers have argued that the challenge, the stresses associated with the workload, the pressure to complete the task, and the time urgency are the sources or the causes which create the stress among the employees and which will keep you reaching from the goal. So if you are very much stressed, highly stressed, you will not be able to achieve the goal. So for example, if you are very much stressed about your examination, you will be feeling some negative consequences, and because of that you will not be able to achieve your goal in the examination if it is very high. But if you don't feel the stress at all, you will not be studying, you will not be preparing for the examination, and which can also lead to the lower performance. So what is expected, you should have the moderate level of stress. Okay, so what are the things which create the stress among the individual? There are sources. We can identify the potential sources which can bring about the stress in the individual's mind. So one is environmental factors, other one is organizational factors, other one is the personal factors, because this is the model of stress for the occupational stress, not for the personal stress. Okay, so for the workplace stress, there are three different sources. One is environmental factors, because environmental uncertainty, the political uncertainty, technological change are the environmental factors which can make the people stressable. Because the environmental uncertainty in the sense, since the inflation is there, since the price changes are really volatile, the people may be thinking about and stressed about their work and their income and all. And political uncertainty, since the political situation of the country is not stable, if the political leaders are very frequently changing, then the people will be thinking about or stress about their job security and all. They will be stressed about. And the technological change, since the technology is changing very frequently, the people may think about or they will have a stress about their knowledge level. If the technology is very frequently changing, they have to adapt to the technology. They need to learn something new. So because of those things, the people will be stressed about. And organizational factors, task demand. Sometimes the people need to work for long hours, like they have to complete task within the deadline. So because of those demand, the people may feel stressed. And role demand, sometimes the people need to perform the role of different roles in the organization, like in the roles in the organization and the personal roles also. So because of those role conflict, the people may be stressed about. And the interpersonal demand, sometimes because of the conflict between the people working in the organization, the people may feel some kind of or some level of stress. And the other one is personal factors, some family problem, economical or financial issues at the family, and some personality. Because of the personality itself, the people will be feeling anxious and stressed about something. So all these factors together will lead to the experience stress among the people, and this stress will have some consequences. So those consequences, we can categorize those consequences under three categories. One is physiological consequences, and the other one is psychological symptoms, other one is behavioral symptoms. So what are the physiological symptoms? Are like headaches, high blood pressure, heart diseases can arise because of the high level of stress. And the psychological symptoms, in the sense anxiety, depression, the people will be dissatisfied about their jobs. These are the psychological symptoms. What are the behavioral symptoms? Like absenteeism, turnover, less productivity. So these are the behavioral symptoms. So if this is the results of this stress, if these are the consequences, how we can reduce those negative consequences? We can use individual approaches or the organizational approaches to reduce the stress. Individual approaches, in the sense, we can follow time management. If we want to complete the task on time within the deadline, we can follow the time management. And we can engage in some physical exercises, maybe going to the gym or engaging in the yoga, or maybe some physical exercise or sports activities. So those things we can get relief from the stress. And relaxation training, sometimes we can engage in some listening to the music and maybe doing our hobbies and also leisure activities, so which can also we can come out from the stress. And expanded social support network, sometimes we can go to the party, have a date with the friends, or date with the partner, or maybe going out with the friends. Those kind of social activity can also reduce the stress level. And organizational approaches, we can improve the improved employee selection and job placement. So whenever we are if the employees are feeling overloaded with their job, we can improve the selection or training. We can give training to the people, and realistic goal setting, rather than giving a task and asking them to complete within 1 hour. We can set realistic goal, maybe giving them at least 3 days or 4 days to complete the task, and then redesign the job. If they want to work for long hours, we can make the people flexible working arrangements can be made available for the people to manage their work and family life or balances. Increased employee involvement can be enhanced, and improved organizational communication. We can communicate the information throughout the organization. Employee sabbaticals or sabbatical leaves can be provided to the employees. And finally, corporate wellness program, and they can introduce some wellness programs, some gym centers, baby care centers can be introduced in the organization. So these are the things we can organization can arrange for the people to manage their stress level. So this is all about the change and stress management. Anything to ask about? Is it clear? Okay, so there is a final chapter that is called the uh, current trends in the organizational behavior. So I just don't want to teach this subject to you all. It's for your reference. So I have identified some current trends in the organizational behavior. So you can search for these trends and get some idea about these trends. So, like greening the organizational behavior, employee green behavior, sustainability attitudes, work-family life balance. So, it's another important issue. So, work-life balance, women in the organizational behavior, corruption and organizational behavior, governance and organizational behavior, information and technology. So, these are the different things which are new in the field of organizational behavior. So, it's your task to read about these behaviors or read about these new trends and get some idea of these things. I can give you the reference material. I can upload the reference material even so that you can read and get the knowledge about those ideas. Other than that, anything to ask? So this is all about the organizational behavior subject. So we will have the presentation on Monday and finish all the presentation for the remaining groups, and we will have the mid-semester examination on Wednesday. Okay. So this is all about the OP. Anything to ask? Is everything clear? Shall we wind up the class then? Okay, if it is clear, we can wind up the class. Thank you for joining. I'll upload the notes in the LMS. Okay? Thank you. And please inform about the presentation and the mid-semester examination to the other people who are absent today. I will inform through your app as well, but you also please inform these to others.